Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 3 of Season 1, 2024 of Endurance for Amateurs here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, brought to you by Ninja Botanicals and AlienAwards.net. Coming up is 90 minutes of action with these GTD and GTP cars. Last week was another thriller race at Sebring International, which saw strong competition among all three classes. After a cakewalk victory in Week 1, Paul Skip was put to the test with a close win in Week 2 over Nick Terrell by just 1.5 seconds in Nick's season debut. GTD A was won by Ken Huber, and with his runner-up spot from Week 1, Ken has taken the lead for the class by 3 points after some strong driving and pit strategy over Eric Bellata. GTD B was won by Kevin Berquist with an 8th overall finish in the GTD cars, a step up from his 21st overall the week prior at Daytona. The class continues to be led by Jesse Coffey, however, who finished in 3rd in class and 10th overall, while Andrew Hicks joined the podium, reducing the GTD B lead by 1 down to just 9 points. I will be joined in the booth, hopefully, by Derek Rice at some point again. We are having some technical difficulties on his end. So maybe solo here to start. We may see him here later. But we are getting into our qualifying session here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And this will be a difficult race for a lot of these guys. It's not a track that... a lot of oval circuits do tend to be a little bit more simple. But there's a lot of mistake generators on this track. And a lot of difficulties. That turn 1 is going to be one that a lot of drivers probably overshoot, especially trying to pass somebody with some draft down the main straight like we see right here coming down. And then turns 5, 6, the chicane is a pretty important speed part. As you can see, he's coming around turn 3 now into turn 4, which is a pretty wild double apex right-hander. Very difficult to spot exactly where to hit the track and where the racing line is. Trying to go as fast as possible through there, as you do have the second longest straight of the track. Now coming down into turn 7. Turn 7, a very hard braking point for these guys. And this will be a really important passing opportunity for the GTPs when it comes time to lap traffic, as getting through this 8, 9, 10 winding S kind of shape will be very difficult to not lose too much time, as Jace Martin has the first time in for those GTPs. As they swing around 10 and 11 here, they rejoin the banking for just a short time before coming down into turn 12, which is another turn that I think a lot of drivers will probably overshoot and have difficulties on. You don't want to track it all the way there. Coming out to 13 and 14, which once you've made your way past the 13 apex, it should be easy from that point out as you head all the way down the straight for quite a fast lap, but with plenty of difficulties involved. So as of right now, we have a lot of times on board. Ken Huber, again, the standing champion for the overall GTDs, and then, of course, GTA as well. Currently a 10th up on Tyler Langenberg. So far, best qualifier for the field in GTDB is Nathan Westland, which actually, if he were to qualify here in 6th, that would promote him. For most drivers, this is the last race for them to get promoted from B class to A class. It's only in the first 3 races that we're looking at that promotion cutoff. So a lot of drivers who already have done that did that in previous races, and this is the last opportunity for everybody who has made it to all these races so far. I don't think I see any notable debuts, but we do have a lot of people returning. Another big GT3 class. Nicholas Paletti has taken first just right then. Paul Skip taking first with a 1:15.352, just a 10th up on Paletti, with Miller Boyd there, I believe a new name, also showing up in 3rd place ahead of Jay Smart. Strong competition that we have in that GTP field. Only 8 drivers, but not a single weak one among them. Nick Terrell, the only one who hasn't put in representative time in yet, but of course we know his pace. A lot of these drivers here with a lot of experience on ovals, or road courses at ovals lately, as they're getting ready for Daytona coming up this weekend, the 24 hours at Daytona. A lot of them probably did the Roar before the 24 as well. And so this will be a little bit of a switch up from probably what they've been practicing all week long, but not too dissimilar from how they've been practicing. Right now, Travis Rowe is first in the GTD class. I believe this is a new livery for him, so seeing him in this black and gold Porsche. Wonderful look as he's overtaken that spot from Ken Huber, who is using the Lamborghini again. We see a lot of McLarens there at the top. Eric Bellata, James Rep, and Josh Doty. Again, James Rep, also a driver here who is in B class and could get promoted from this qualifying performance if this is where he finishes. But the McLaren, I don't even know if we've seen somebody use the McLaren. At least we didn't last week. I don't think we did. So it may have some advantage in top-end speed that will certainly benefit you some lap time here at this track. We see a lot of times coming in. Matthias Ackrich is here after first week, was not here last week. Big field that we have all the way back to 33 GT3s and a total of 8 GTPs. So giving us over 40 yet again for 3 races in a row, which is a fantastic number to be hitting. Paul Boyle here, a lot of improvements on that lap, makes his way up to 10th in that Ferrari, and it looks like the highest place qualifier so far in that Ferrari too. It looks not to be a overly popular car this season, unfortunately, for early adopters of this pretty new model. It just doesn't seem maybe to have the all-around capability that it did in the previous iteration with the 488, but some drivers still using it to good effect. We saw Brad McCombs last week really fast with it. He was just unfortunately out of the pit strategy on that race, but had he not had the early incident, he easily could have been up there in the top 5 with that car. Then speaking of other cars, we also have the Audi, which was a bit of a handful for a lot of drivers last week at Sebring. Had issues with oversteer on long corners, which this track has a number of. Maybe not as many sweeping corners. I mean, certainly turn 3 would be a stress for it. And we're not seeing too many people using it. We see Tyler Langenberg there in 3rd in it, which is an interesting, as he's about to catch him on screen crashing into the wall. Hopefully that doesn't happen in the race for him. But we do not see a lot of Audis out there outside of him. He's the only one in the top 16. Kevin Bergquist was the best finisher with that Audi last week, and he is back there in 17th currently, looking to probably improve that position. Dennis Diaz improves his qualifying position by 1, moves up from 7th to 6th. This time not the only user of the BMW GTP. So we see Miller Boyd there in 5th, and Nick Terrell with a 1:15.216, and from what I understand, Paul Skip with a 1:15.216 as well, but Terrell's time came in after, so the timing for this track must be measured beyond the thousandth of a second here, because I'm seeing equal times to the thousandth for these two guys. Paul Skip's time was in 1st, so clearly timing being done to the 10,000th of a second. We have a qualifying victory here for Nick Terrell potentially. I don't think anybody else is left on track with hot laps to do in the GTP class. Nick Terrell may have just taken pole position here at the Indy road course by a handful of 10,000ths of a second, which I think is a new one for the broadcast here. We'll have to verify these results after, see if there's any way to pull the raw data on these times, but very competitive up there. And as I was just saying, not just between Terrell and Skip there for 1st, but Paletti, Smart, Boyd, they're all within a half a second. Diaz, Kelly, and Banks really not that far off either. Although, to all things considered, this being a Roval, it actually is a pretty short lap, only a minute and a quarter for the GTPs, another 10 seconds slower for the GT3s to be making their way around, but should give a lot of lapping opportunities for those GTPs, and most places are going to be easy enough spaces to get by, but I guess we'll see come race time if there's going to be any issues in some of these parts of the track. And it looks like Nick Terrell is going to come away with the pole position, and Ken Huber, our GTDA leader, is going to come away with pole position there in the GTDs. James Rep, top B-class performer, but actually high enough that I believe that'll get him promoted to A-class. So Kevin Berquist may be our best qualifier there in the B class. So as they get warmed up, we will verify these results, and we'll be back with you in just a couple minutes. All right, we are back, and here is our official starting grid for this Indy road course. Nick Terrell on pole with a 1:15.216, and I did confirm. I couldn't get the information on if we were going to be on 1,000th, but I did confirm Paul Skip's time also a 1:15.216. He put it in before. Somehow he comes out second here, but he's just gonna have to put up with it here. Coming in second after 2 pole positions in the first 2 races. Nicholas Paletti finishes in third with Jace Martin fourth. Miller Boyd here in fifth with Dennis Diaz in sixth, and John Kelly and Troy Banks round out that GTP field. Ken Huber takes another pole position for the GTDs with Travis Rowe in second. Following them in third, Tyler Langenberg, followed by Eric Bellata, Jeff McDonald, and Colin Winslow. James Repp, who has been promoted due to the qualifying performance that he put in here, with Joshua Doty in eighth. Paul Boyle and Keith Roycroft rounding out the top 10. Adrian Garcia in 11th with Christopher Craig 12th, Matthias Ackrich and Nathan Westland. Andrew Hicks, James Foreman, Greg Holland, Kevin Berquist, Richard Curry and Don McCloy, Travis Bell, Christopher Newby, Jesse Coffey, Aaron Claybaugh, Daniel Hingley, Rick Hughes, Roger Schenk, Zach Nurnberger, Philip Ranieri, Leonardo Elijah, Todd Schneider, Daniel Sykes, and Dan Barnett. We see them making their way around. It's going to be a little bit of a long pace lap, so they do have to get around the entire track here. But yeah, sure enough, Nick Terrell taking pole position with absolutely no time between them. We may have Kevin Berquist starting in the pits, so had a pretty decent qualifying performance. But I'm seeing him kind of fall into the back of the field here. I think he's in the pits to start this race. Not sure if that's something that was done on purpose or if he is not able to make it back in time. Hopefully we see him in this race. As we wait for these guys coming around the track, making their way through a tough chicane that will maybe bring a little bit of action here at the start of this race. As coming down this straight after that chicane will probably be the first passing opportunities for most of these guys, as they won't be able to pass right at the start. However, again, any lap 1 incidents are investigated just in case anything happens. However, that being said, so far this season, first 2 races, not to jinx it or anything, but we haven't had anything happen. There's been no penalties that have had to be given out in the first or second race. It's all been really clean and respectful, and everybody aware of, not only how long the race is, but just the fact that everyone else's race matters just as much as theirs. But we're going to see these guys making their way around the latter half of this track. Yeah, we do see Kevin Berquist is showing on the map in the pits, so does seem like he would be intending on starting. Maybe some technical difficulty on his end as well. I see that he's joined the pits 3 different times, so maybe trying to sort out a technical issue on his end, either in the game or potentially real life with his rig. So hopefully he's able to get going, but they are making their way off the banking for the first time of 2 times. Dipping their way through turn 12, and this race will get going quite soon. Nick Terrell here in the Mystery Machine, as always, trying to lead them ahead. Making their way around the final corner, turn 14. Nick Terrell going to be waiting on this green flag. Pace car is out of the way. Kent Huber is going to be leading the GT3 class behind them. Nick Terrell waiting, and green flag goes. So it is no passing through turn 1. So don't look for any dives into turn 1 here. But after that first little complex, should be free reign for anybody to make a move. Nick Terrell looking well into turn 1 here. Hard on the brakes, no locking up from anybody that I see behind. Clean sailing through turns 2 and 3. Now turn 4, trying to pick the braking marker. It's a difficult part of this track, as it also sends you into the chicane, which is an important part of your lap time, but not sweating too much behind as far as gap. Paul Skip able to stay with him, but a little bit closer to Nicholas Paletti behind than Nick Terrell ahead. Into turn 7, and we see already an incident for potentially Tyler Langenberg here. Still facing the right way, but lost many positions. What, maybe getting out of sorts. What is it they have? Oh, I don't think he actually lost position. I just having a connection issue there. No drama, as we see Tyler Langenberg back there to third place. No positions really swapped outside of a couple. Zach Nurnberger, Roger Schenk fighting for a couple spots, but everybody in the top 17 so far in the GT3 is still in the same spot. Everybody in the GTPs in the entire field, same spot as well. 1:22.6 for Nick Terrell to start the race here. Was a whole second faster than Paul Skip behind, but Paul seems to have caught up. Oh, and there's a big wreck back there. That looks like James Rep. James Rep, I think, in that McLaren losing spots. Huge wreck for him, and this was before the end of the first lap. See if we can figure out what just spun getting out of turn 14. I must have added that curse in there as I talked about that kind of being smooth sailing, but on these cold tires having an issue. Car's still in it. I really am shocked that he's still driving this thing, because it looked like a hard enough wreck that he would be out of it. Obviously struggling here now through these corners. He's going to have to come in and take one of those faster pairs immediately, trying to stay out of the way of everybody in the middle of the chicane. But unfortunate wreck for a really good qualifier there in this race 3. We do see Kevin Berquist out on the track, so whatever issues he was having, I think he got solved. But John Kelly in the pits for the GTPs, and that looks like some damage to the car too. Let's take a look at this replay. Yeah, car just snapping on him through that chicane, and it's unfortunately some inconsolable damage there. Yeah, not even able to drive it back to the pits, unfortunately. Well, we get back to our leader in the GT3s. Ken Huber still leading the race. Got about a half-second advantage behind. Looking strong as he makes his way through this first little section. And this chicane right here is what was the undoing for John Kelly that we just saw. Should be a little bit easier for the GT3s to handle, given their suspension a little bit less flat running than the GTPs. But it'll be interesting to see if that gives the GTPs and the other drivers some issues, especially on the cold tires, which I think is what we saw with a James Rep incident as well. Making their way around. We have not had a lot of changed positions here. We have all of the top 6 in GT3 in the same spot. And outside of James Rep's incident, everybody in the top 15, top 16 as well, also in the same place they were. Travis Bell may have just had an incident. Let's see what happened to him here in this red Audi. Just kind of seemed to go away on him out of nowhere. It's the exact kind of issue that we were seeing last week at Sebring. Maybe not the exact kind of corner we were always seeing it there at Sebring, but a little love tap on the wall for good measure as he makes his way out. But while no damage to the car most likely, unfortunately a massive loss of time there for him. Up at the front, Paul Skip still trying to chase down Nick Terrell. Unable to catch up to him here. It's been pretty stagnant between the two since the start of the race, hovering around 6/10. With Nicholas Paletti about the same amount behind him. So don't know how much they're playing the long game here and how much they're actually matched up, although Nick Terrell's clearly going defensive on his line down the straight. We see James Rep coming in there for a repair. But Nick Terrell going defensive down the straight, not giving Paul Skip any tow. Still doesn't really matter. Skip able to catch up a little bit as they are in different cars, so interested to see if that's going to play an effect in this race as far as who's able to come out the victor. But right now it does look like Nick Terrell suffers a little bit on the straights compared to the other guys. I think he might be the only driver in the Cadillac. I know we have a lot of Porsches. Looking back, we have let's see, Keith Roycroft losing a couple positions there. Travis Rowe at the fast lap of the race so far. See Garcia and Christopher Craig making their way by. Yeah, Keith Roycroft just a little bit deep in that corner. Safe enough with his rejoin there. You see Garcia in the Ferrari making his way by, and right there, nice move made by Christopher Craig as well to capitalize on that opportunity. But Roycroft did get passed by Matthias Ackrich as well, so that's why he's down 2 after gaining the one from the early incident from James Rep. We are already getting lapping traffic. So we can see here these GTPs making their way around the rear of the GT3 field so far. In some of these areas they catch the drivers are going to be better than others. This is not the worst spot in the world as long as Elijah is aware of them, but yeah, coming up into that chicane there's only one line through there. You can't really go side by side through that section through turns 5 and 6. And Andrew Hicks, unfortunate, looks like he's spun out. Let's see if we can see what's caused the issue. Oh, wrong clip here. Andrew Hicks, our second place guy right now in the championship in the GTDB class. Just got loose on him there, heading through turns 8, 9. No damage, though. Able to get back going again, just losing a few seconds. But definitely going to hurt the race when it happens to you early. You got a lot of guys to make your way through. So now trying to claw back some position. Still only 20 seconds back from the overall lead. If we take a look at some intervals now, you can see Travis Rowe keeping up with Ken Huber here at the front. Has not made a move yet, but has been under half a second for now 3 laps in a row. No pun intended. And pulling away from Tyler Langenberg a little bit. About a second and a half. Doesn't have to worry too much about the driver behind, although it does look like it's kind of slipping back a little bit. Richard Curry making the move on Don McCloy, and the move repaid in full afterwards. Let's see this battle we have here. Don McCloy in the Martini Porsche. Oh, and a collision, too, as they head into the braking zone of turn 7. Another collision at the apex. But it seems like that must be where the fighting ends, because I think that Don McCloy has that position now. Richard Curry able to reclaim it for just a second. Jay Smart, Christopher Newby. One sec. Got a couple things happening here. Chris Newby, an incident. Got tapped by Nick Terrell there. Don't think that was the incident. And getting hit by Paul Skip. Paul Skip, and with damage to the front. Skip hits him twice. And has to have some damage on that car. That's why we see Paul Skip down a few spots. I thought we were seeing Jay Smart gain some spots. It's Paul Skip here who, with no really super visible damage, has lost some momentum and is down to 5th place, our championship leader, after winning both the first 2 races. Similarly, we have an incident for Dennis Diaz here, maybe getting caught up in this. Oh, and Skip, another collision with another car. Dennis Diaz, an unfortunate benefactor of what happened there. But let's take another look at what happened as we see Paul Skip in front, bouncing off the wall into that 708, and the 708 just sit careening into Dennis Diaz with absolutely no time to react. That's a shocking result there. We also have a couple other things. Leonardo Elijah, Todd Schneider may be involved in an incident here, at least at the same time. Elijah just a little bit of a lazy spin, and just based on lap time, both I think affected there. So no damage at least, but some time slowdown for both those guys. And you can see that's that 708 BMW trying to limp his way around and just in really bad shape. I believe Christopher Newby. I'm trying to figure out exactly which car that was. Incident for Jesse Coffey, the GTD. Oh, it was Jesse Coffey. It was Jesse Coffey's BMW. So he unfortunately unable to keep control of that car as he's heading through the S's in the middle of this track. And the leader for GTDB has unceremoniously been taken out of this race. Meanwhile, we saw that incident for Andrew Hicks earlier as well. So really opens up the field for those B-class drivers. So it looks like, yeah, Nathan Westland and James Foreman now contending for the GTDB lead in this race. Nathan Westland at one point was high enough in qualifying to get promoted into A-class. Didn't quite hit that threshold, but may not be too upset with that, as he is now the leader of this race in that class. Top four positions for GT3 all staying the same, and GTP a little bit mixed up after that Paul Skip. A couple of incidents that we actually saw a little bit uncharacteristic for him, but maybe just some unfortunate spots to be trying to make a move around some traffic. He has made his way past Miller Boyd and is into fourth place. Just has 3.5 seconds now to Nicholas Paletti, but it's not the start of the race that he wanted. Gives Nick Terrell a much calmer start to this race. And yeah, indeed, Nick Terrell, the only driver in that Cadillac, which has been a pretty popular one in officials. So surprising to see kind of pretty small amount of usage for it here in this race. But with only 8 drivers, you know, it's not a huge variation that we can have. It has been strong. Dennis Diaz is trying to fight his way through the field here, and he unfortunately is not getting any blue flags as he makes his way through, because these are all actually for position. After that wreck, he did get that fast repair. He's back out there running quick, and he's unfortunately a whole minute 19 off of Troy Banks. I doubt that he was in the pit window, but it might happen. It might be possible. We'll get a better idea as we come around to our first pit stop, but he is just now making his way past the last few GT3s up here, which all are for position, and he's not getting any blue flags for that, so just makes it a little bit more difficult to pick your way through the field. I believe it's James Rep there also. Yeah, James Rep, the GT3 that we saw have a really big accident on turn 1 in in lap 1 in turn 14.
Well, hello, Zach. I think I've finally got a few things sorted, at least well enough to join you on the broadcast tonight. I might need a little catching up, but I'm glad to finally join you.
Oh, fantastic. We have Derek Rice here in the booth. Got the technical difficulties figured out. Yeah, this is there's been a couple incidents so far in this race for sure, and most notably, we've seen Paul Skip not out of this race by any means, but with a couple of, I don't know, I mean, maybe a little bit, uncharacteristic collisions with some lapped traffic, some GT3s he was trying to make his way through. And we saw him collide with, I believe, Christopher Newby, and we also saw him collide with Jesse Coffey. So he's trying to fight his way back, and he's just ahead of Miller Boyd. He might be losing some pace on this car with that damage, as it doesn't look like he's catching up.
I say Nick Terrell's probably not mad about that at all. Paul Skip's kind of been dominating. He won the last one, and he won the one previous. And Nick Terrell was a great bid for last week. He was pushing all the way as much as he could, and he couldn't quite secure the win, but we all saw him push all the way as hard as he could. So it's good to see him in P1. Let's see if he can hold on to it.
Yeah, it was a tough race that he had last week, and really came down to the wire. Was absolutely in the cards for Terrell to potentially get up there, and I'm sure he would have wanted the race to go on a little bit longer to have that opportunity. We also have seen some GTDA has been mostly drama-free so far, but GTDB, as I already mentioned, Jesse Coffey with an insight. Oh, and there we go, Keith Roycroft making his way past Matthias Ackrich. Ackrich just going a little bit wide there and looking like he's struggling with the grip on that car. But
is Matthias a new entry?
Matthias was here in week 1, has been here in the past as well, but was not here at Sebring, so he is a little bit behind on points until we get to drop week time.
Gotcha. That's the only reason I don't recognize him, because I've only done the one last week. But I see a lot of familiar faces here. Ken Huber looks like he is at the top of the field for the GT3 class. Man, he's trying to do it for the whole season, and he's made a big splash last week.
Yeah, Ken Huber already has of course, the 2 podiums in the first 2 races, and doesn't have pole positions in the first 2 races. Both of those went to Eric Bellata, who is currently, he qualified in 4th and is still in 4th for this race. But Ken Huber with his first pole position for the season and looking to try to podium in all 3 races.
You can see he's definitely got he's got a push going. He really wants to make himself known.
Jeff McDonald, Colin Winslow battling hard here for 5th and 6th. Jeff McDonald on the outside that's going to turn into the inside. Should have the advantage coming into this corner. Yeah, that's the difficulty of trying to make a pass there. Winslow did his best, but you're just going to get beat out in the geometry at that point. Winslow spun backwards. I don't know if that made a collide with anybody.
Looks like everybody got clean around him, at least that much.
Try to take a look and see what happened.
Doesn't look like he took any damage. It was just an unfortunate incident.
Yeah, very minor tap by the car behind. I believe is Adri Garcia in that car. Nope, no, Adri Garcia is the Ferrari. Ahead of that, Paul Boyle. Yes, Paul Boyle in the tender car. Unfortunate minor tap there, taking Colin Winslow out of that battle, but no damage to the car. So from what we can see, so he's back in 15th, but still in this race. Paul Skip had another incident, just got passed by Miller Boyd trying to get the spot again, and we may see a 3rd incident already. The GT3 not knowing where to go, both GTPs actually kind of panicking in that moment. Miller Boyd just going off track, taking a slowdown, and Paul Skip getting some more damage on his car. This has been a nightmare start to the race. Let's take another look at that incident.
Like a lot of people have chosen to take on the Ferrari. I know a lot of testing went underway, and I consulted with a guy who has been consistently doing well here, Travis Bell. He went through every single vehicle here to really try and hammer out which one was going to make sense and which one really wasn't. And it's interesting because last week we had the Audi that obviously had problems, mostly balance and grip problems. And what he saw was the Audi and the Ferrari showed most promise out here. Ultimately, he went with Ferrari, and it looks like a lot of people went with either the Ferrari or the Porsche.
Yeah, I was going to say we saw some issues with that Audi last week. We actually already saw one earlier in this race that looked very similar. But there are not as many people, I think, using the Audi in this race. Tyler Langenberg, however, is up there in 3rd with it. We also are seeing a smattering of McLarens, which I don't think we saw last week at Sebring either. So there's something in that McLaren's build that has some bonus and some effectiveness here at this Roval.
Yeah, well, Indianapolis is a way different look than Sebring, so it offers a really long backstretch like they're going through right now, like we can see, and that's going to play into it. They are very good around the turns, very good accelerating out, and they have decent straight line speed. So, they have a decent play. However, the Ferrari is kind of in the same place. I don't see much promise from the Audi, but it's still a completely different track. It's a different road surface. So it could be anybody's game, but it looks like it's Porsche versus Ferrari here.
Aaron Claybaugh here. He's up 8 spots from his qualifying spot. Is in the A class. Maybe just didn't get the lap in that he wanted here. But he's making up some spots. He's only 2/10 back from Richard Curry, who does have a little bit of damage to that Ferrari as well. So I don't know if that's affecting his pace. But I'm interested to know where that came from. But there's been a lot of small collisions, I think, so far in this race, and I can only keep up with so many.
Everybody's trying to stay competitive as we get into this season. They want to make their place. They want to make sure they don't lose anything. And as we all know, there are drop weeks, but you want to make every race count.
Jesse Coffey back there. Unfortunately, another incident. Had the spin, or the crash that we saw earlier with Paul Skip, but then a spin there in turn 4, and not the first time so far already that we've seen the BMW do kind of what we saw the Audi do, with just a little bit of a lazy oversteer. And it wasn't an issue for the guys in the BMW last week, but already a couple of incidents early here at IMS.
You know, it's interesting because the BMW is usually about the average pick. It's kind of the safe play. It kind of works everywhere. It's not really a special car for any track, but it'll get you where you need to go, and it's not going to be the slowest. So it's kind of a safe pick. But here, it's proven to be a little bit of a shakeup.
Here we can see Tyler Langenberg really putting a lot of pressure on Travis Rowe here. Travis Rowe was sitting in the wheel tracks of Ken Huber for a while, but now is fallen back and is struggling to keep that second place from Tyler.
Absolutely. We got Roger Shank trying to catch up to Greg Holland, who's had some insuccesses the last few races. It looks like he's trying to make a move and trying to hold on and get something on the board here. He's driving the Porsche. I think that might be a smart play for him. That's looking nice.
Yeah, has been a while of some Porsche popularity since we really got that new one put in. Previous one was all kinds of broken. We saw so many issues there. We even had a race where we had to disallow it because it was just too dangerous to drive. But ever since they put the new one in, it has been one of the most popular and really successful cars as well. We have Todd Schneider with a number of incidents here. You see him coming into turn one. Looks like there may be a couple things that happened to him here. So just taking the runoff. Although, yeah, keeping to the outside. Let's see if he does rejoin without any collision. Just saw a lot of notifications on my timer, but yeah, I think he is able to get back going again without any incident. Just had stopped to make sure he was rejoining safely.
Absolutely.
However, Travis Bell may have more of an incident here.
Uh-oh.
Oh, car backwards. Couldn't avoid it last second. Goes in also then into the back.
Ooh.
Matthias Ackrich and Daniel Hingley, I think the three drivers all involved there. So here's Daniel Hingley. His car is struggling. I don't know how he was out there.
That is really rough for Travis because as you all know, I was having some technical difficulties, and instead of practicing in this session, Travis was screen sharing with me, doing hard uninstall for Discord because it was giving me such problems. And so instead of practicing, he did that. He showed back up for qualifying. During the warm-up, he came back and he did a little bit more and he got it going. So that's the only reason I'm here. So all props to Travis for making the race and also fixing my broadcast problems.
Looks like Andrew Hicks here having an incident of his own. Looks like there was maybe just a little bit of a collision. Yeah, he hits that curb. I think the driver is competing with there, not expecting him to come out like that. Lost about 10 seconds in that incident. And then we also had Colin Winslow. Oh, Winslow was the third driver in that. I think I may have said the wrong. I think I said Matthias Ackrich. So Matthias Ackrich was a separate thing. Trying to keep track of what all is going on here. Matthias Ackrich with his own incident here at the exact same time that we saw that crash back there. Let's see what this was. Another BMW spinning in turn 4. Same spot that we've already seen a couple drivers have. So trying to get my head around what's just all happened there. We've had a number of guys have some big incidents and things shaken up a little bit. Meanwhile, we still do have our pole position setters leading. Nick Terrell there in first and Ken Huber in first, respectively. Currently, I think that we've got Nathan Westland still. Yeah, Nathan Westland still is the top performer in GTDB. Even has a one position cushion there on James Foreman behind him, although threatening to both gain a position on Garcia here and also potentially lose one to Roycroft.
We're going to let Rick Hughes pulling up on Philip Ranieri for P25 or P26 actually. Looks like there's a little action with the GTPs that shook that up, and he had to give up that position. He had no choice.
Yes, so sometimes you get caught out.
Unplanned, a little bit of unplanned setup on his point, and I think those GTPs is one of those opportunities where you see them coming in the rearview mirror, and all of a sudden your strategy has to change. and it's never going to work out for you.
You can see here Rick Hughes on board trying to chase down Philip Ranieri. Ranieri in the Mercedes. Not a ton of people using it, but still a reasonably popular car after its introduction a little bit ago. And then the Ferrari here for Rick Hughes. Like you said, we've seen a lot more people in the Ferrari today as opposed to last week when we got, like, I think 3 guys using it total.
Yep. Yeah, Zach Nuremberger is just behind them, trying to catch up in the Lambo, but I think that Lambo just doesn't have the straight line speed today that the Ferrari or the Porsche has. The BMW is kind of maybe a mid-ground, but I don't know. I don't think it's the choice today. It does have a really nice turn set on here, but that long backstretch is undeniable.
Strong move that we saw there by Roger Schenk, who's just in the front of our screen there and still having to defend from Greg Holland behind, but really nice move to make that pass into turn 12. Turn 12, very difficult braking zone. We've seen some mistakes outside of battling made in there, so to make that move and get the spot, really difficult. Shows a lot of, car awareness, I think, by both drivers as well.
Been a pretty clean sector since I've joined. I don't know what happened exactly before I was able to join, but so far it's been pretty reserved. I think everybody's hanging on. They're realizing that we've got a long race to go and you can't really burn the tires up or your position up, without taking too many risks.
Oh, Ranieri take that. Ranieri and Hughes, I think, both losing position. Or Holland, Greg Holland.
Man, Greg has had a few incidents the last few races. He has not had good luck, whether it was his fault or not. I know last week he was in the Audi, and the car selection is what really burned him up last week.
Yeah, hard to tell exactly what happened, but I don't really know what was going on there. It looked like Ranieri was just taking the track like normal. Holland seemed to be coming in really way too fast for that corner there.
I think he had too much momentum coming out of that left-hander and just misjudged where everyone was going to be for the entrance of that right.
Zach Nuremberger here having an incident of his own down into turn 12. I was just saying drivers having issues with that there, although instead of going deep, he hits the curb on the inside. Probably nothing worse than that. A little late rejoining, but able to get going again. Nick Terrell also hung to dry on the outside there, making his way through some GT3 traffic. Finally gets his way through, and not really too much of a lead there that he has on the drivers behind.
And Don McCloy, he's really pushing his Porsche on that BMW of James Foreman. He's only got a few car lengths in there, but, this is kind of the track where a few car lengths doesn't mean a whole lot. If you really get that straightaway, you really get that tug down the back end, you can make your way through. And the Porsche is back heavy, so you can kind of treat it like a go-kart. It's going to have a different look than that BMW does, so he might be able to take advantage here soon enough. We'll see.
Yeah, looking good so far for him. As you can see there, he's up 7 spots. Among the highest drivers, or most improved drivers in this race so far, we see Roger Shanks up 10, Aaron Claybaugh and Rick Hughes both up 8 as well. So some big gainers. Dan Barnett, I think, further back up 9 spots. So some improvements by some guys in the field. Don McCloy, one of the biggest ones so far here. Matisse Ackridge may have just had an incident.
I know Rick's going to love that because he's had a rough start to the season. He's already pulled a drop week potentially, and he's had a rough start. So seeing that 8 spots up from his start spot, I think he's going to be motivated to really do something here. He's running clean, and I think running safe on that conservative side. Just put the laps in, wait till you really get that opportunity, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and for Ackridge there, yet again seeing the exact same issue that we've seen from the BMW today with that lazy spin there in turn 4. So not looking good for him here so far. Not looking good for the BMW so far for anybody. I mean, as you can see, James Foreman, the top runner right now in 12th. Nobody else even in the top 15. So not the pick, I think, for this track. It's generally a pretty safe overall all-rounder kind of pick, but it has seemed to be giving some of these drivers some real big issues.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was talking about before. The BMW is usually kind of the average. Start with the BMW, try the Porsche, try the Lamborghini, see kind of what happens with it. But the BMW is usually kind of like the mid-range, well enough car, and it seems today that it's having its own issues, kind of like the Audi did last week.
Near a little bit of a weird incident there for him, and that's a bad rejoin. That was Greg Holland, unfortunately, again. So a couple drivers familiar with each other now over a couple of incidents. I don't really know what was going on there into the corner. It seemed like, I don't know if he had damage or something. He's really here on the wide on the outside here, and it's almost like he's letting these two cars by because he's real early on the brakes, but then he kind of doesn't let them by. I don't know.
Yeah, Greg just got caught up in the that Mercedes. I don't know why he went so hard inside from where they wrecked and stopped, but that's the only reason that Greg got collected in that. There was nothing on Greg's fault. He just happened to show up at the wrong time. They went 3 wide into that turn, and there's only but a few things that can happen when you do that, and most of that is chaos.
Yeah, it was just a bit of a strange situation. Didn't look like he was trying to let him through like he had let those GTPs. I'm not sure why he would have, but a little bit of miscommunication there, I think, unfortunately. This is a tight battle in this GT3 field, all the way back from 7th all the way back to 11th, all within half a second of each other, which is a little bit of the opposite story as we've got in the GTPs right now. Really none of them close to each other. This traffic is really separating them. We see the leader right here, Nick Terrell, as he picks his way through this field. Luckily, getting it at just an absolutely perfect time to make his way past almost the whole pack. Not quite able to do so, but getting past 4 of those is certainly a positive.
That was quite impressive. He made about 5 or 6 passes on that straightaway. He made it his way through Keith Roycroft, who's currently in 18th, about to make his way past Nathan Westland if he gets a good chance. He's got a few looks, and he's really pushing hard. I'm definitely going to be watching this back.
We also have an incident here for Paul Skip, our championship leader, as he comes out of the pits. So he's got the damage fixed. He's here on some cold tires. And not an incident, but a white flag, a retreat, I think.
That's going to be tough.
This battle here continues to be tight between these guys.
We have 8 cars rolling in, including the GTP class into turn 1. My goodness, it's like it's lap 1 all over again, without the chaos.
Yeah, these guys are honestly closer than they were in lap 1, all within a half a second here. Some 2/10, some 3/10, but no moves made in a little bit here.
I think they're all waiting. I think they're waiting for their opportunity, and they really know that you can't win it in lap 1. You also can't win it halfway around the race. You really have to make your strategy. Don't burn up your tires. Make the best use of your gas. Defend your position most of all.
Ooh. Roycroft here trying to make the move on Nathan West, and a collision between the two, a little bit clumsy. Making away with it. Keith Roycroft still behind Nathan Westland here.
And
that could have been bad.
Paul Boyle's probably happy to have them gone, but he's still got Joshua Doughty on his rear end. Oh, and Josh Doughty spins. I retract my previous statement. I'll say Paul Boyle is mighty happy about both of those situations in that tender Ferrari.
Yeah, it gives him a couple seconds of free space. We see just kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, it looks like he just lost it on his own, whether it be track circumstance or tire circumstance.
I mean, we are 35 minutes now into their stint, so as far as when we saw them pit last race, at least at Sebring, they were going just a little bit over the 45-minute mark, so another 10 minutes to go. But yeah, I mean, half an hour is when you start to really notice some tire wear, although hopefully not so bad that it's really just kind of causing spins just, from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But
look at Nicholas Spoletti making his way through those GT3 cars.
Yeah, he is
Doesn't
catching
really
up as
have a lot of
well.
opposition. He's trying. I don't have my overlays on because I'm scared to turn everything on because of what I've been dealing with touch difficulties. So I can only see relative, really. But I can imagine he has got the gas on just like he did last week to try and take that P1 spot. He's certainly making his way through those GT3s. Just past Tyler Langenberg, who's got the pressure on from Daniel Barnett just behind him, even if they are not in the same race.
Yeah, I mean, Paletti, I mean, just it wasn't really that long ago that we were looking at him, and he was, about 6 or 7 seconds apart, I believe, and we are now seeing that. Yeah, you can see there up to 8 seconds on lap 23. Now here in lap 29, his gap to Nick Terrell ahead just over 3 seconds. So 5 seconds over these last 6 laps is really fast, and you have to wonder if Nick Terrell just taking a little bit easy in this section of the race. Maybe he has some bad traffic. They're both in some free air now, and we'll see if Terrell tries to extend that gap again. It looks like he's trying to do that. We can see it now all the way up to nearly 5 seconds as he's here making his way through turn 13 into 14.
Well, Nick Terrell fought his way through the pack and last week, and we saw the fight that he made just to secure P2 last week. Finally got himself in position to be on pole, and he's got Nicholas Paletti fighting right behind him. Wasn't it Nicholas that took P3 last week, or was that Jay? I can't quite remember.
Yeah, last week the guy taking P3 was Dennis Diaz.
Oh, that was Dennis. Oh, okay, yeah.
Who, unfortunately, Diaz already out of this race with a really dramatic wreck on lap 2 or so, and got back into the race, but I guess I don't know if something else happened. We did see him rejoin, but yeah, he has retired the car at this point, as well as Paul Skip, it looks like.
Well, oh wow, that's an amazing fact, because those are the top contenders. Looks like Nicholas Paletti and Nick Terrell will take advantage, and hopefully Nicholas can put some pressure on Nick, even though Nick has really been cranking, because he really wants it. You could see it from last week, the amount he was pushing to get to P1, and just all he needed was 5 to 10 more laps to really have that shot. So this week, he really has a potential on it.
Yeah, former champion Nick Terrell, of course, is no stranger to being at the front of a race and having that ability to step away and take that championship. So he's plenty comfortable out here in front, and we'll try to capitalize on that here today. He's comfortable with this car too. I believe this is the one that he's running in the Caddy GTP for the Daytona 24 Hours coming up in just a few days. So getting some more practice with the car under his belt as well.
Got Rick Hughes pushing up on Matthias, about to make the move. Maybe not this time. He's definitely looking though for P23. There's fights all around the course, whether you're in first or last or mid-pack. You have to fight for every position.
Yeah, Hughes here is a guy who's up 8 spots, like I mentioned earlier. One of the biggest risers of this race so far. Trying to catch up, and Ackrich down 4 spots from his qualifying position, but we've seen him involved in a couple incidents. I think, unfortunately, taking him out of his optimal race strategy here.
Ryder Shank kind of walking away from that Matthias and Hughes pack. He's hoping to catch up to Christopher Newby, even though he is a lap down.
Huge
Aaron
collision.
Clayball is next.
Huge collision for Jay Smart there into the wall, coming through the chicane. Same place that we saw John Kelly lose control of the car. Jay Smart towing to the pits. So another, really stellar driver that, if not out of this race entirely, is going to be effectively out of this race after that tow.
Wow, that was a big hit. It's going to take some repairing. Jay was not looking for that at this stage in the race. Really gonna burn him up, I imagine. He actually had a good look. He was holding on. He could have had a potential for podium tonight.
Yeah, especially with the incidents to Dennis and Paul early, it really opened up a lot of possibilities for a lot of these guys. But doing well for the two Knicks there up at the front. And Troy Banks, now the guy running in that P3 spot, but he's getting plenty of competition from Miller Boyd here behind. Miller Boyd, we saw him battling with Paul Skip earlier in this race, but these two cars now trying to duke it out for that third position spot. All of a sudden, I don't think they didn't see it coming. I don't think that the third place was going to be in their grasp, but now this is the battle for it. The GT3 of Greg Holland stays out of their way.
Yeah, I think Greg is just playing it safe. You know, all the distress he's been running today, I think he just wants to put some laps in, get some points on the board, and I don't think anyone would have anything wrong to say about that. We've all been there. Eric Bellata kind of running on his own. He's kind of a top contender, a top look kind of guy, and he's kind of in the middle. He's got no pressure right now. He's kind of hanging on, but things can change. I will say that things can change. Daniel Barnett is doing everything he can to catch up. Even though he is not a contender, he will use him as a draft. Try and catch up to Jesse Coffey.
Yeah, and Eric Bellata here, like you said, trying to make his way into that podium spot, was the pole sitter for first two races. A huge collision with that curb there, losing some time. Now well, I guess the car behind not actually for position, so not in any threat behind, but lost another second and a half there to Travis Rowe. But Eric Bellata, I believe this will be his final race for a short amount of time at least, as he will be out of commission, out of the rig for a little bit. May see him in the booth up here, actually. But it was a planned thing for him. And one of the best drivers of this season so far, unfortunately, won't be able to compete throughout this entire run.
Well, he will be a welcome addition into the booth, whether he can be driving or talking.
Chloe here, still trying to chase down. Now up to the 10th place spot. Started in 20th. Now up 10 spots. And right behind Keith Roycroft, who, as you can see, Roycroft right behind Nathan Westland still. These two guys have been ultra close. We had 5 or 6 guys all next to each other, and now this is what remains of that group.
Man, they're looking really close. That's a 3-car pack right there, and anything can happen.
Similarly, another one of the big gainers of this race, Aaron Claybaugh, trying to get one more spot on Rick Hughes. Rick Hughes with a little bit, Richard Curry. Richard Curry with a little bit of damage to that car that we've seen him running with. And we're getting close to the halfway point. So the drivers who had to pit earlier than this from damage, it does look like they're going to be losing out yet again, like we saw at Sebring on that optimal fuel strategy for the GT3s, where they are just taking it one stop, which actually I think most of the GTPs haven't stopped either. They may be able to make it here to that halfway point, which I think that in all the races so far this season, we've had 2 stops for the GTPs. I could be wrong, but I think that that's what we've been seeing. So a little bit surprising that we're just 20 seconds away from hitting that 45-minute mark, and these guys all at the front still yet to come in.
Yeah, we haven't seen really any pit stops yet, and I'm really kind of curious. Looks like we missed Travis Bell. I think he might be out of the race. We have to look. I think he's in the pits right now. I missed what happened.
Yeah, I believe this was the latest incident for Travis Bell here.
He's in the peach Red Bull car.
Lap 23 here.
He went in. Oh, wow. It looks like the Mercedes just didn't see him taking that attempt, and he got smacked in that right front quarter panel.
Yeah, it was a little bit late, a little bit bold. Yeah, I don't think that he saw him coming at all there, unfortunately. And as I speak of it, we got our GTPs in the pits.
There we go. It really looked like he didn't see him there. I don't think was too bold. It looks like a pretty normal pass, as long as someone can see you going for it. And I don't think that was what happened, unfortunately.
Now, we'll say we are just barely past the 45-minute mark. Still should be safe as long as they drive the same way. However, an interesting development to watch, Troy Banks here, still out on track. Troy Banks never took the pits, so either he's going to run out of fuel on this lap, or he's the only guy that was able to stretch it. And if he did, that may mean that he's able to drive this second stint a lot more aggressive than the other guys may have to.
Well, I will keep my camera trained on Troy Banks, and if I see a little sputtering, I will definitely clue you in on it.
Yeah. It wouldn't shock me. It is it's a lot as a driver because you have to manage everything. You have to manage all the strategy, the fuel strategy, tire strategy, what you're going to do with the other drivers around you. You don't have a crew chief. I mean, there is a spotter, an AI spotter that the game has. Other than that, you got to be able to figure out everything and also be running fast.
Yep. And you got to consider that there's a lot of slower vehicles on track that you have to contend with. So, like, you're going to have to let off a little bit. You're going to have to go slower into a turn than you normally would on a qualifying run or your hot lap. And that's going to mess with your gas as well. So, like, if you're already running on fumes, you might run into a pack of GT3s that all of a sudden you're about to run out of gas and not make it back to the pits.
Strange incident there for Aaron Claybaugh. It looked like he wanted to not pit and then decided he was going to pit and then changed his mind last second as well. Interesting incident for him there. Maybe he did have the fuel to go another lap, didn't expect to, and maybe we'll see him in here because we are seeing some of the front runners now heading into the pits. We saw Adrian Garcia this lap, and Ken Huber into the pits now as well.
Ken Huber absolutely is into the pits. Tyler Langenberg has stayed out. I'm thinking he's trying to burn up those tires and make everything count for this lap. He's pushing the limits, gonna make everything count for this lap, and then likely go into the pits directly after.
Yeah, there is nobody I think in this field that can really manage fuel better than Tyler Langenberg. He's had some pretty stellar wins and high placing performances from almost entirely based off of superior fuel strategy that other guys just weren't able to make happen. So maybe even trying to go another lap here, which I am noticing Nick Terrell's crew chiefs there wearing Patrick Mahomes jerseys. I didn't notice that was his crew outfit.
Yep. And there he goes around Tyler Langenberger and Greg Holland. Greg Holland taking the wide line, taking the safe line. Tyler Langenberger on the inside of him. I think Greg just wants to complete the race at this point and put some points on the board. He's had a rough few. I'm really hoping he can put something together here. Maybe the Porsche wasn't his best choice.
Tyler Langenberg is coming into the pits now, so Travis Rowe, if he's not pitting, which doesn't look like he is, never mind. So a couple guys. See who is our new leader here. Eric Bellata not coming into the pit, so Eric Bellata will be leading this race now. A familiar location for him as he did lead our Daytona Grand Prix for the majority of it.
Yeah, he had a big show out at Daytona. He's still going to have to take a pit, so I'm wondering where that is really going to land him back in the field. He's only got one more lap left at most, unless he pit prior for maybe repairs or something, and now he has a few more laps before he needs to get new tires. We'll see.
Yeah, so right now the only people in the top 11 who have made a pit stop is Travis Rowe, Tyler Langenberg, and Ken Huber. And we're seeing a couple more now. We're seeing Nathan Westland in, James Foreman coming in. So that would explain that being added up. But those three guys were the only ones who had completed a pit stop and made a lap back around. So nobody in the top that I think we're expecting to kind of fall out of this race on pit strategy, as we kind of had that situation last week with Brad McCombs.
Indeed. There's a lot of field mix-up a lot of people following lap ups or lap downs. Looking at Christopher Craig in P9 right now, he's trying to get the draft on Aaron Clayball in P21. You got to take every advantage you can, whether you're actually racing that person or not. And there goes Chris Craig into the pits finally. I think he's running on fumes by now.
Troy Banks with an unfortunate incident there in turn 4. It's been a common mistake area that we've seen between both classes, and that battle that was really close between him and Miller Boyd for that third place position. He's now 14 seconds behind Miller. Miller here on what I believe is his debut for the league, may be coming out of this race with a podium because, John Kelly is in the race. He is still running his car, but with the early crash really taken out of the strategy almost entirely, and that really just leaves 4 guys to be racing out here on the lead lap.
Well, it's still going to be a 4-car shakeup, even if that is the case. Everything can happen. We've got a long race to go. You never know what's going to happen, even if you got only 4 cars technically on the lead in the push.
Keith Roycroft here making the move on Nathan Westland as Nathan Westland comes out of the pits. Nathan Westland taking the spot back, then losing it on the outside, but following Paul Boyle through, taking it back again. Keith Roycroft trying to take it around the outside. Westland giving him the space with the GTP there also involved. Keith Roycroft has the inside of the chicane, loses out. Has the extra speed going around the outside. Nathan Westland's got the draft of Paul Boyle. Totally different lines. GTP makes his way through, and Keith Roycroft with the advantage heading into the braking zone of turn 7. That is some tough battling, and especially some tough battling for Nathan Westland on those cold tires, just coming out of the pits and having to immediately get thrown into the battle that he was part of the entire previous stint.
It really is incredible that we are still racing at Indianapolis here in 2024 after this track first broke ground in 1909. That is 113 years, folks. That is impressive. Regardless of whether the track has been resurfaced or a little remodified, it has still been at this park for 113 years, and we are still racing here. That's awesome.
Yeah, only a couple of tracks worldwide that even boast an older age than IMS here, and always a lovely venue to go to. It's always larger than you expect it to be. It's a pretty massive location.
Yeah, but when you finish the race, it always feels a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter. You always wish you got a few more laps.
And Westland here now trying to catch up. He was following Paul Boyle, still doing that, but actually Keith Roycroft now in front of both of them. So Roycroft in that Porsche leading both guys now, and after battling for a while in that previous stint, now here in this second stint, getting those tires fired up a little bit faster than both those guys. It looks like early on just a little bit more lively in that car. And Westland just sniffing a move there in a couple of the areas, just trying to scare Paul Boyle a little bit. I don't think he really ever intended on trying to make a pass into turn 4, but he has the pace to try to make something happen here.
Troy Banks just getting around Audrey Garcia. They got a little shakedown there between Audrey and Chris Craig. They got their own race, and you can't forget, you're going to have to keep your eye in that rear view for those LMPs because they're going to come up quick. You might be focusing your own race, and out of nowhere, you got an LMP on your rear, Yeah,
it did seem like the pace gap between the two classes was a little bit more exaggerated. Ooh, Nathan Westland, again, trying to think about a move there. It did seem like the pace gap was a little more exaggerated at Sebring, I think, than here, but yeah, still flying up on you quite fast. And Philip Ranieri is into the pits now. So we're getting that pit stop. And we have a car stopped. Kevin Berquist, I believe.
Nathan Westland is making a move on Paul Boyle, or at least he's trying to. He gave it a go, but he didn't quite have the pace and the braking power to make the move. Okay. But, man, is he ever trying? I will say that much.
Kevin Berquist with a gigantic collision there. in the chicane,
Ooh.
and tried to get it going, but immediately given it up. And that is
Yeah.
massive damage there to a guy who is one of our B class front runners.
Looks like his whole front bumper is gone, and that will give you a meatball, unfortunately for him.
And as we have a couple of the battles now kind of separating out, now is probably a good time to take a few minutes. So we will leave the stream here, and we'll be back with you in just a couple minutes. All right, we are back, and here we have Eric Bellata trying to chase down Travis Rowe. Of these top 5 guys, I mean, they're really showing why they're up there. They're just in their own tier. While I mean, they may not be like super close to each other outside of this Bellata Rowe battle. They're all qualified top 5. The only thing that's happened is Rowe and Langenberg have switched positions, and really no one has been close to them.
Yeah, they're really trying to push forward. This is a few races into the season, so the points are really going to start to stack up here quickly.
Yeah, and especially once we get to that timing of the first drop week being implemented, it'll be interesting to see how that changes things as we do that on a rolling basis, so that we can have a general idea of where everyone really is. But some people miss a race early on, or have a bad race. Of course, we've seen that plenty of times, and that can be essentially forgiven with that drop week. But it's nice to not really need to use that, because any time a driver drives knowing like, well, I have a drop week to use, that's always when something bad happens, and usually more bad things happen in a season than you can control.
Yeah, they want to take a few more risks, just knowing they have that little safety cushion. But oftentimes, if they take that safety cushion at heart in a race, knowing it's a safety cushion, then it's going to turn out bad for them and other people. So I feel like you should keep that out of mind and race every race like it is your last, and just wager it at the end of the season, and whichever your 2 races are that are bad will be dropped. But you should know that you went full on into every race.
And up here, full on, certainly, Nicholas Paletti has dropped that down to just 2.3 seconds between the two. You can see John Kelly there. It looks like John Kelly had an incident in front of Nicholas Paletti. Nick Terrell. Nick Terrell not involved in the incident, luckily. But Nick Terrell, again, disadvantaged by the location of the GT3s there. Just bad luck, as he now makes his way around the outside 3 wide and is down to 1.2 seconds. And that is a spun. I think it's Zach Nurnberger there. That was one of the guys 3 wide. Was there a collision there, potentially, with Nick Terrell? Yes, there was. They got sucked together with some net code.
It looks like Nick Terrell tried to stay as far wide as he could, but it looks like there was nothing that Lamborghini could do to stay completely wide. Or is that a McLaren? I can't quite tell from here.
It is a McLaren, I believe, yeah.
It looks like he really did try to stay out of contact, but he just had too much pace, too much momentum in, and Nick Terrell gave it everything he could to stay wide, and there was just nothing he could do to not collect that tap.
Roycroft into the back of Don McCloy. No effect of McCloy's car, but spinning himself a quarter around there in turn 1, able to get going again, but losing some hard-fought spots that he's really been... Oh, and going wide there as well. Some heated tires.
Seeing a few headlight flashes from Nick Paletti, flashing Ken Heber, saying, I'm going around. He is trying his best to catch up to Nick Terrell.
Yeah, 6
and
tenths.
He is not far. I will say we got a race on our hands here for P1. Wow.
Don McCloy just had a minor incident here as he then gets another tap. So got tapped from behind by Roycroft. Didn't affect him. That tap with, I believe, Adri Garcia did spin him around there in that corner. Safe rejoin on the track, at least. Somewhat.
Well, it looks like we are just over 2/3 of the way done with this race. About 25 minutes to go before the white flag crosses, and anything can happen, but it looks like that P1, P2 shakeup is going to be very interesting to watch. It's not normal you can get this far into a race. A lot of times, the top class will have a massive gap. The top driver just tends to walk away, especially driving through these GT3 cars. And that is not the case today. Nick Terrell's got a job on his hands to hold that position.
Yeah, Nick Terrell looking better in the rest of this race, I would say, up to this point. Still a fast time that he had there, but it's been a little bit scruffy these last couple laps. And again, Paletti using that draft to get himself sub 1 second there into turn 1. So not as close as they were last lap. So Terrell able to pull away a little bit, but it just seems like he's had some struggles with some of the traffic so far.
Well, luckily for Nick Terrell, Paul Skip is out of the race. And if Paul Skip was still here, we might see a completely different race at the top of the field. But unfortunately for Paul, he had some issues, and that is going to be an advantage that Nick Terrell will be happy to take.
Both drivers a little bit slowed down there, but again, that, like I said, coming into this race, that was going to be the worst time for the GTPs to be trying to catch up to traffic. Was in that 8, 9, 10 complex, and sure enough, really neither driver able to get through without losing some time. But Paletti, who was at 6/10 back, now starting to see Terrell drive down the road a little bit. So these corners have not been friendly to him here at the last half of this lap 51 heading into 52. Aaron Clayball.
John Kelly's making his way around Matthias. Not really anything action going in there. Roger Shank is trying to catch up, but he's got too much of a gap. I think he's going to be having his own race here for a little bit.
And then, yeah, we have Aaron Clayball, who has been chasing down Richard Curry for a while. Curry has that damage on his car repaired, so Clayball does not have that advantage in his pocket. And here we have the leader again. More traffic that they're dealing with here in 8, 9, 10. As you can see, this is a perfect view for why this is so difficult for Paletti's position. The way that the track goes left, right, they know where to go.
Man, Audrey Garcia has got his work cut out for him. Nathan Westland is giving him all the pressure. He just about made a move connect. He's going down the straightaway over the start-finish line, and he's going to give it everything. I would not be surprised to see him make a move right here going in turn 1. It looks like he's kind of being... Oh, there he goes.
Yeah, Adri Garcia late on the brakes and trying to avoid an off track, but I think just hurting himself more than anything else in the end doing that.
Wow, what a drive. I mean, I'm sure Nathan was ready for anything, and he was on his mark. And it just looks like Audrey he probably got in his rear view. You know what I mean? Like, there's many times where you can be going down that front stretch, you stare at that rear view at that guy that is just behind you, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've missed your braking point.
Keith Roycroft there, an incident in turn 4, like many other drivers, but you could tell right at the start of that clip that car just doesn't seem very comfortable, I think, right now, and spinning a little bit faster, a little bit earlier than I think we've seen a lot of the cars. So giving him an issue here. Wonder what his tire strategy was as well, if he took all brand new tires in that last stop or if he didn't.
Well, at this point in the race, they're still going to have to make another stop for tires, at least for gas. So I would say if it was me, I would definitely wait and make sure I had a fresh set for that last stop to really give a hard push for the end of the race. Looking at Eric Bellotta right now in P9, trying his best to catch up to Travis Rowe in P8. But that Porsche it looks like it's definitely giving him a little hell. He's driving that McLaren, and we know the McLaren definitely has a turn advantage as well as a straight line advantage. But compared to that Porsche, I think the straight line might go to the
McCloy
Porsche.
making the move. Don McCloy trying to make the move on Paul Boyle. He's going to have the outside, which turns into the inside. We've seen everybody in his position take advantage and take the spot here into turn 4, and I think he's going to do that as well. And there he goes. Paul Boyle having to cede that position, maybe going to try to fight back for it. Looks like he's all right. Looks like also we have, right during that, potentially an incident for Christopher Newby here. Maybe he just doesn't rejoin the track. Oh, this is the track. That seems like some sort of tech failure because the car didn't even steer.
Well, I'm curious. Maybe his steering rack got broken because that's been a thing as far as iRacing's updates on their damage models is massive steering rack problems. So if he was trying to turn and it didn't, then that could be it.
Well, you can see the steering wheel there is
though.
Not moving at all. I think that's a tech issue, and the car's not even coming to a stop because the gas is on a little bit. Okay, that did come to a stop there at least.
It's possible that maybe his internet or maybe he lost power at his house or something. It is winter, and who knows where he reigns from. But I know a lot of people are under heavy snow right now, so that is potentially a factor.
Newbie is a Brit himself, actually. So, yeah, connection sometimes an issue across the ocean. But I don't ask him. I don't know what British weather is like right now. I have no idea.
So I'm watching Greg Holland right now, and I'm really happy to report that he's actually got a good look on him. Usually, and I'm sorry to say, in our recent past, we've only had misgiving reports, where he's come under trouble, and it looks like he's playing it safe right now. He's staying with a reasonable distance from Zach Nuremberger, knowing that he still has a long race to go. Probably going to try and keep up the pace to him, maybe make a pass sometime in the future. But for him, I think, just the fact that he is on track and racing and has some space to drive his own drive is comforting factor for him for once.
Yeah, and if he gets that spot, that puts him into the top 20 as well. Definitely an event-laden race that he's had so far, but in a pretty, again, another large field of GT3s, 33 of them, top 20 still an achievement to make, especially for the B-Class. I mean, not a lot of the B-Class guys, above 15th or so, really only a handful of guys able to do that, with which Nathan Westland currently leading. But as far as top 15, only 3 guys from the B-Class in there, and that's Nathan Westland, James Foreman, and Richard Curry.
Absolutely. So he's trying everything he can to just make that play, continue the race, and finish it as well, and secure a decent spot.
Now McCloy battling again with Paul Boyle. So again, Paul Boyle had lost here a couple laps ago here into turn 4, but he has regained that position down that main stretch into turn 1 as Don McCloy trying to fight it back, and McCloy having to worry about James Foreman behind as well. All 3 of these guys in contention, with Keith Roycroft recovering from the early spin that we saw there just in turn 4 also 3 laps ago. So all of these guys having just some minor stuff happen, nothing big. We saw McCloy get spun earlier. Boyle's been involved in stuff. Boyle a little bit wide, McCloy a little bit squirrely. Neither guy able to take advantage.
Don McCloy is really trying hard to catch up to Paul Boyle. Paul Boyle, I think that Ferrari might be the big play today for this track, because it seems to have advantage all over the track, be it straightaway, be it turned, be it braking factor. I mean, he's really trying, James Foreman, in that Porsche, but he never find that good look. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Don McCloy there really nailing that curb, and we've seen a couple guys lose control of their car with that. McCloy does have damage to the back of the car from the spot earlier. James Foreman slipping his way through in turn 14. Don't think Don McCloy is going to have anything to say about this unless he's got enough of a draft from Paul Boyle. He goes to the inside now with that draft. Now he's out of it.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Nope.
See, yep. It's not going to work. James Foreman in that BMW, I think the BMW might be that tighter, more balanced vehicle to be able to take that space and brake a little bit later going into turn 1 on that long straightaway.
And look at that, Keith Roycroft trying to take an alternate line to maybe get an advantage on Don McCloy ahead. Tight battle in between these two.
Now James Foreman pushing Paul Boyle. He's probably going to go on the inside. He's going to give it a run maybe, or he's too far off.
All 4 stay in line astern, and then right in the back of that screen, we have that continuing battle of Richard Curry and Aaron Clayball. That is still going on. They're still having a spin by Don McCloy, a minor contact for Keith Roycroft, lost his bumper, somehow reappeared back on his car, able to keep going.
Richard Curry squeezing by.
Aaron Clayball as well.
He's trying to keep it up. He's trying to hold on.
4 wide. Don McCloy backing out.
Pushing through.
Don McCloy backing out as he kind of recognizes that I think his damage that he's got in his car is just making that a little bit undrivable. Keith Roycroft, it looks like his suspension, maybe it's just the body work, it looks a little bit off as well, but he's keeping pace over these corners here.
Yeah, I think it's just bumper related, but man, what action we just saw. Wow, that was incredible. You never knew what was going to happen, who was going to push through. Wow. Indianapolis never disappoints.
Been a wild race so far.
Got an LMP.
Oh, and that's a big collision for Katie
no.
Roycroft, unable to stop, and that's right into the side of Richard Curry, leaving Aaron Claybaugh a free lane to take the spots. Unfortunately, I don't think Richard Curry is too bad of damage, at least not much worse than he had on his car previous stint. But yeah, I think Roycroft's car a little bit damaged and maybe wasn't accounting for that into that braking zone.
Yeah, if we look back at the replay, I would imagine it looked like Richard Curry didn't see him, or he saw him and didn't really think that he would go that hard on the inside and took the advantage and tried. So let's take a look back and see. Oh.
It just was, he was never, I doubt Richard Curry was looking that far back, because that came from pretty far back there.
Yeah, that wasn't Richard Curry. I think he just got on the brakes way too late, and he just couldn't stop. He was also behind the he's in the grass.
Oh, yeah. And then they get together there as well. Richard Curry is having a bit of an exciting race here, getting bullied a little bit by some of the cars around him. He and Matthias Ackrich quite close.
Aggressive.
A little bit of a late reaction there, but stays ahead as Matthias Ackrich now also having to fight off the car. Well, the car behind actually not for position.
That's
so
Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rick, I think he's not pushing. He's just taking advantage of those drivers in that draft just to keep his time up. He's not pushing. He's not trying to cause them any problems. He's just trying to keep up and take advantage.
Gap at the front of the field. Now that we're down to 13 minutes or so, Nicholas Paletti is now falling back to a little bit over 3 seconds, which is what we have seen for most of the race. But I think that the sub 1 second couple laps that we had was maybe just a little bit of a blip, as Nick Terrell was able to respond and pull that space between the two again. Well, actually, no, this might explain it here. Nicholas Paletti with an incident.
Uh-oh.
Into turn 1.
Oh, wow.
Those tires starting to fail him a little bit. Probably lost a good 1.5 or 2 seconds there in that incident.
There's a lot of mixed field going on right now. I'm reading Kevin Burnquist in 29th. In front of him, Chris Craig in P10. Jeff McDonald in P9 in front of him, but just behind those backs we got P31, P11, P26, P12. So there's a lot of people here using each other as an advantage to draft, whether it is for position or just to help each other get around. And I think they might be grouping together because of that, especially in the backstretch.
Curry getting attacked here again by Matthias Ackrich. It looks like Matthias Ackrich able to make that move stick, and it's looked like he's had the more pace in his car over the last couple laps, just unable to actually get an effective move put down. Might be able to step away at this point, unless the draft is what got him into that position, in which case we may see Richard Curry fight back here.
Yeah, imagine you can really only get a draft in that backstretch, and it is a long one. It is a very long stretch. So, yes, you can take advantage there, but you have to be set up for it initially. Looking at Kevin Burnquist, he is trying to take advantage over Christopher Craig. He might get a few tenths off of that, and that will keep him away from Todd Schneider behind him. But even then, they're not fighting for position either.
Yeah, a lot of guys off the lead lap so far. John Kelly makes his way through these couple of guys, but there's a lot of mix-up on track, like you said, and drivers have to kind of tiptoe around each other while also dealing with the other classes to boot.
Yeah, Don McCloy and Zach Nurnberger are actually in a fight for P23 between each other. I think they've been fighting for quite a while, and I think they might both be kind of playing the safe route and waiting for those last 5 or 6 laps to really get the gas in and take one on the other.
Yeah, I mean, Don McCloy has Zach Nurnberger spinning.
Oh, wow. Zach Nurnberger, I think he hit that curb and it sent him a little loose. Don McCloy slammed on the brakes on that Porsche, and he magically avoided that, got around him, and now he's taken up advantage in P23. Zach Nurnberger is trying to catch back up, but he's got probably a good 20 car lengths in between them.
Here we see another view of it. Yeah, not the first time that Nürburgring has kind of obliterated that curb, but we've already seen him get some air a couple times and have some incidents with that. So playing it fast and loose with these tall curbs here and paying the price there, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think he was just trusting the track too much, And these cars are set up really stiff.
That was
when they get bounced, they're gonna bounce.
Off track for, I think, Richard Curry, sorry, getting them mixed up. Richard Curry, I think, off track there and losing the spots. Yeah, Richard Curry was off track for a few seconds here. You can see here, this is how Matthias Akrich, they're battling. Oh, and huge collision. Both of them off track.
Oh, yeah. It looks like a bumblebee floating over a flower on that one.
Aaron Claybaugh, Matthias Akrich, and Richard Curry all involved in that battle there. And Curry nailing the curb just like we saw Zach Nürburgring, except that time spitting him out into the path of Aaron Claybaugh. Both guys having to take some avoiding action. Eric Bellata just made the move on Travis Rowe into turn 14.
And that section is so tight. If you miss that braking point,
try to get it back.
It is going to be chaos for everybody. So here we go.
Travis Rowe wants it back. Heading down the inside, making the braking move, defensive by Bellata, and the curb collision by Travis Rowe, taking away some momentum for him.
He held on to it. That was a very, very defensive action that he did. He said, "I'm not going to give it up. I'm going to stay in my plane, and you're just going to have to slow down more."
We see a replay of Bellata's move. Just taking the inside line there all the way through 14. Must have a little bit of tire life, tire freshness that Travis Rowe is missing out on here late in this race.
That's what we love to see here. That's tight racing. That is skill set. You got to trust your instincts.
Looks like in the GTPs we have Miller Boyd out of this race, was fighting for, and for a moment was possessing the third place spot. And it looks like he is now retired. So Troy Banks, although a minute back from Nicholas Paletti, is looking to be the third place finisher here in this race. John Kelly still keeping in it. John Kelly with a really early incident, earlier than I think all of the other GTPs. And if he had just packed it up and retired, then he would be sitting here in 8th. But he's up in 4th place now. He's up 3 spots from where he qualified in 7th, just by staying in this race when other guys pack their bags. So good on him for that perseverance and keeping it going for this race. And meanwhile, Nicholas Paletti, to round out the GTP field and the story that's going on, has brought it down to about 2 seconds to Nick Terrell. So I think he is going a little bit faster. So you can see Nick Terrell slower by just a fraction over the last couple laps.
Oh, yeah, and we've only got about 5.5 to 6 minutes before that white flag drops, which doesn't sound like a lot considering we're doing a 90-minute race here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course. But 6 minutes, anything can happen. There's a lot that can shake it up, and you can get advantage if you see a car you can follow and you can shake down. You might make a pass happen. There's a lot can happen in 6 minutes.
Yeah, there's still another 5 or 6 laps to go for these guys, and a lot of traffic to pick their way through, because that's really what's been defining this race between these two Nicks. The battle of the Nicks up here at the front has been the traffic, as they have kind of lost a lot of opportunities to just put flat out times out there. Every lap is getting, you can see the coverage of the GT3s on that track there, every lap getting disrupted a little bit by the GT3s, and it's just a game of getting disrupted the least. And some of it is absolutely skill based, but another large portion of it is just luck on when you catch up to them.
Yeah, it can be that, because you never know what's going to happen with the prototypes versus the GT3s. So you can kind of anticipate how quickly you can catch up to, maybe if you're driving a GT3, you can see the relative and you can guess at how quickly you might catch up to them. But then if you blink, all of a sudden, boom, in your mirror is LMP, and you either have to get out the way or they go around you, and that can shake up your whole push on what you're trying to do. So I'm looking at Josh Doughty right now, and he is doing everything he can to catch up to Audrey in P12, doing everything he can. And right behind him is Greg Holland taking that draft advantage in P25. He says, even if I can't pass you, I can hold my position and I can stay away from the people in the back and maybe just keep my position with y'all.
Yeah, it's definitely a good experience to have, especially if you that's one of the best ways to learn some secrets about a track is watching guys in front of you and how they take certain turns. But yeah, we're now down to 127, so about 3 minutes remaining. Paletti's still not making a sizable dent in that lead for Nick Terrell. I mean, he's keeping up, but Terrell was a little bit faster on lap 65, was a little bit slower on lap 66. Something large has to happen here in these last couple laps for Paletti to have a chance here. Both guys, nerves of steel, don't often see large mistakes from either guy, so I don't think I would be counting on a mistake being made, but some things can be out of your control.
I'll tell you, if I put my money on it, I think I would put it all on Terrell because of how close he came last race. He wants it hard this race. I know Paletti is really pushing too, but Paletti is in Terrell's position that he was last week. So they're both pushing hard, but I know Nick really wants it this week. So, I mean, we'll see what really happens and what goes down in the next 2-3 minutes. Anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, no shortage of championships in this star-studded GTP field. Nick Terrell, former champion. Nicholas Paletti, former multiple-time champion. John Kelly, I believe, champion of LMP2B from a few seasons ago. Jay Smart, a champion of O4A. Paul Skip, a champion in E4A. And Dennis Diaz, a champion so many times that there had to be a Dennis Diaz rule because he won too many. He won too much. So, and that's, again, without having Terry Kiger Jr. like we had in that first race, also a multiple-time champion. So the GTP representation is brutal competition. And right now, Paletti trying to put in the best laps he can, trying to handle his traffic as well as he can. He's brought it down to 7/10, but is another ball game to make the move as opposed to just trying to catch up.
And I wonder, I really do, what would happen if Dennis Diaz and Paul Skip were still on track right now? I think we'd be looking at a different scenario. I'm not saying either of them would be in top, but I am saying they would have shaken up the field because they've been strong so far. I know we're very early in the season, but they're already showing out. And even though a lot of these contenders, especially Nick Terrell and Paletti, they have passed and they've all got their ships, but this is another ship. This could be the ship for the ship. You know what I mean? This could be the boat to take all the dinghies if they're going by themselves. And they had, Paul Skip had problems. Nick Terrell's about to take advantage.
I think with a rough second half there, it's looking like Paletti out of the hopes there in this first place. Something major will have to happen. Nick Terrell now a 2-second lead coming into the final lap. Still some battles, though, in the GT3 field being fought for. Josh Doty here trying to catch up to Adri Garcia. Adri Garcia, we've seen him in a couple incidents so far. Josh Doty promoted from B class to A class with a great qualifying performance last week. I think he qualified all the way up in 5th and then had a pretty good race to himself as well.
Yeah, Ken Huber is just kind of relaxing out in P1 for the GT3s. Tyler Langenberg, he's a good amount away. There's no chance that he'll get back there. So I think Ken is just going to hang on and try and drive some laps and not really try and push too much. Behind him, Richard Curie and Roger Shank are actually battling for P18 though. Which Tyler Langenberg is catching up on, so you never know.
Terrell coming around the final corner here, corner 14, and a wonderful race that he's had a little bit of pressure here at the end, but showing strong in the end from a very, very tight pole position of less than 1,000 second to the win here. Checkered flag. Nick Terrell getting another win here as the only member of that caddy. Nicholas Paletti just a couple seconds behind him. Troy Banks does finish in third, was a lap down, but was right there behind him, so secures that third place spot that he had. And that is a first-time podium for Banks A second podium for Paletti and a second podium for Nick Terrell here with his first win on the season. Certainly not his first win in the career. And meanwhile, GT3s, he's already off the track. But Ken Huber coming across first with a 5-second lead over Tyler Langenberg. Tyler Langenberg, a great race as well. Both guys starting in the top three. Eric Bellata made his way from fourth into the podium spots. Meanwhile, we're also going to follow Nathan Westland here as he is going to take home a maiden victory here in E4A for the B class. Westland qualified all the way back in 14th, so really clawed his way up there. Didn't qualify at the top of GT3B, but he is going to be coming across here first with a healthy lead over next of James Foreman there in 11th. Nathan Westland 7th overall. Fantastic victory for him in this B class today.
Wonderful.
Garcia defending against Josh Doty at the line, just under 2 seconds. Close between the two. Paul Boyle whipping it around the final corner in that tender car. Another eventful race for him, but 10th overall. An improvement on some of the messier races, unfortunately, he's had earlier this season. James Foreman there coming in second for the B class today.
And what an exciting race today here at Indianapolis Raceway. And you know what's more exciting than this race today is the fact that we have been racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway since 1905. What an incredible racetrack. You know, they keep it up and we keep racing there, and we will continue to race here for hopefully decades, eons to come.
Great battle that we had there. So we will look at the final official results. GTP, final results for the class. Nick Terrell coming across as your winner. First win on the season, second podium out of 2 races. Nicholas Paletti in second and Troy Banks in third. John Kelly takes home the 4th place position. Miller Boyd, Jay Smart, Paul Skip, and Dennis Diaz rounding out the field with DNFs. Then looking at our GT3 field, Ken Huber comes across as the winner. Yet again, this time now his second win on the season, podiums in all 3 races. Tyler Langenberg with his second podium of the season, and Eric Bellata also with 3 podiums in 3 races. Travis Rowe and Jeff McDonald round out the top 5 with Christopher Craig in 6th. Nathan Westland gets the win in B class, which is not only his first win, but his first podium in E4A as well here. Adrian Garcia, Josh Doty, and yeah, congratulations. Adrian Garcia, Josh Doty, and Paul Boyle rounding out the top 10. James Foreman with a first podium on the season in 11th overall. Matthias Ackrich, Aaron Claybaugh, and then Richard Curry coming across in 14th. That is a brand new podium, I believe, for us in GT3B. None of those guys on the podium so far this season. Roger Shank right behind him, Keith Roycroft, Andrew Hicks, Philip Ranieri, Zach Nurnberger, and Don McCloy. Past them, Greg Holland, Rick Hughes, Dan Barnett, Kevin Berquist, Jesse Coffey, Daniel Sykes, Leonardo Elijah, Todd Schneider, Christopher Newby, and James Repp. And rounded out with Travis Bell, Colin Winslow, and Daniel Hingley.
And Travis really had a rough day today, didn't he? We usually don't see him down in the bottom, so I'll be curious to go back and see what truly happened to him.
But I think it's time to get some interviews done. We got some guys waiting in the waiting room.
Here we go with Ken Huber taking another win for your class. How did you like driving Indianapolis, sir?
Hey, Dick Dastardly. Hey, I'm glad to be up in the booth with you guys again. Hey, I'm pretty happy with this one because Indy's a track I always struggle with. So to get a win here, and when I say I struggle, I usually do something stupid when it comes to pit strategy or something like that. But I was able to put it all together tonight, so I was pretty happy.
Yeah, you really made it happen. We very much enjoyed watching you hold it together. It looks like you were just kind of relaxing there in the last few laps. How was the beginning of the race, though? It looks like that was different.
Yeah, the beginning I had a lot of close guys. I had who was it, Langenberg, and I think Travis Rowe or somebody like that back there, and they were keeping it close. And so I was putting pressure on. That was no relaxing drive for me. And Tyler kept it close all the way to the end there. So yeah, it was a good race for him. Good race for me.
I was interested to know, you picked the Lamborghini. which didn't seem to be a popular pick today. I know you've used it before. It was more popular last week, but not a lot of guys run it today. Did you like run through the cars to decide, or are you just sticking with that car throughout the whole thing? I wondered if it was a tactical decision you made or not.
Yeah, no tactical decision. And at the beginning of the season, I decided to choose the Lambo and stick with it. That's kind of what I always do, no matter what. If I get stuck with a disadvantage, then I get a disadvantage. I just got to work harder. So I
Well,
like to
once you
learn. Go ahead,
well,
Derek.
so once you get accustomed to a car, then you're already invested in it.
Yeah, that's right. And I just the Lambo is something I wanted to try this season. I actually wanted to run the 296, but I can't drive that thing to save my life. And if you guys remember last season, I was in the 488,
Mm-hmm.
and I love that car. But now that it's gone, it's like, well, I guess I'm stuck with the Lambo for now.
I'd love to talk to Nick Terrell right now, who took the big dub. Looking at you in the mystery machine, how excited are you for this win?
I'm more like excited to not be driving anymore, but it feels pretty good. Um, Even with all the fans and cool seat and AC cranked and everything, I'm still pretty damn exhausted and sweaty. Nick Paletti kept me on my toes for sure. I tried to be a little easier on traffic in some spots just because I didn't want to risk any sort of incident. It almost came back to bite me in some cases. We just juggled traffic back and forth. It was a damn good race. That's the hardest I think I've raced except last season or season before last rather Daytona against Terry with LMP2.
Indeed, you and Nicholas were definitely pushing all the way up to the end. I'll say the last race at Sebring, you were really pushing for that P1. How do you think the race changed for you once Paul Skip was out of the race?
Um, Pressure went a little bit down, but I also knew I couldn't really get complacent with things because I knew like the likes of like Jay Smart and Paletti and like the unknowns with like Miller Boyd and whatnot. I didn't know who was what, how much practice people had done, how the Porsche would do versus the Caddy throughout the stint when the track started to get to like 110, 115 degrees or whatever it was, and yeah, she was slippy slidey with that medium downforce set through a lot of the low to medium speed turns that normally I think even on like open setup shops they'll like run probably a little more downforce than what the medium is. Then you can already be rolling like full throttle and stuff. So I had to adjust there throughout kind of the first stint and had to remind myself to keep the rear tires under me just because I knew this car the way I kind of like to drive it. I do a little bit of partial throttle to help get a little more oversteer. And at the end of both stints, first stint I was like down to in the 60s, and the last stint with a hotter track, I was down in like the low 50s. I think it was like 51, 58, or 61 or something. Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
definitely getting slippy slidey out there.
Oh yeah. So this is almost a two-parter. So Nick, you were probably watching your relative, being Nicholas Paletti, catch up to you, or at least stay within the realm. I'm sure that got you sweating a little bit. Nicholas, how did you see the last 10 laps or so as you were starting to catch up?
Well, I think it was the biggest gap I had to Terrell was like 10 seconds, and I don't know what happened. He probably caught some real bad traffic. There was a pack of them I think behind Boyle, who was like it. You got caught behind them in the wrong time, and you just lost tons and tons of track.
Oh, with the
Um,
GT3 traffic.
yeah. So when you got
Oh, okay.
behind them, I mean, you could lose up to 3 4 seconds. So I started catching him, and I was watching him, and I'd catch up. I think I got as close as like under a second, but
Six
Oh,
you
we
tenths.
hit
saw.
bad
Yeah,
traffic,
we saw.
and
Yeah, we saw.
I saw too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you did.
Every chance I had a little straightaway that I didn't feel like I was about to either possibly be murdered or just have to be 100% attention, man. I was taking a glance up there just to kind of see like what it was looking like and what sort of traffic it looked like he was gonna have to deal with.
Well, I will say for TV telemetry, we appreciate the fight that y'all had and how close y'all came towards the end of the race. That was an incredible race here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course.
Yeah, I'd rather have that than a 20 or 30 second win from or Skip or whatever the historical data is kind of showing over the last like 7 races or whatever, and
I
try to
bet
make it.
Paul Skip right now is knocking heads right now and wishing he could be on the podium.
Yeah, I was trying to make it as close last week. A little hindsight. I was I'll talk retrospective a little bit. I was kind of flustered and horse blinders on, head down type thing after that spin. And when I came in the pits on my first pit, I meant to actually only take partial fuel, enough to just get tires so I could take new tires on the second stop. But I was just finally getting a drink and full gallons on my last stop, so I couldn't take tires. So we were both battling with like old tires at the end. But I wanted to try to play some chess and have some new freshies on that last stint. But by the time I realized it was too late and I was already full of fuel, so yeah, I didn't want to show a hand
Hey,
during that time.
the rook always has the advantage on the castle.
Yeah, wonderful performances to both you guys there, second and first. Tough GTP class, so congratulations on those performances. Looks like we don't have Nathan Westland in the Discord for an interview, so we will miss out on him. But congratulations to all you guys. And if you're looking for more racing, we will be here again exact same time next week at Okayama. Which not only a track that I love, but also one that just got a recent art update on iRacing with the new foliage, the 3D grass and everything. So keep an eye out, not for just a fantastic race next week, but ideally a beautiful looking broadcast too.
And I can't wait to see that track. I love racing Okayama, especially in like Miatas and other stuff. I cannot wait to see what we do here with E4A at Okayama on the refresh.
See everyone next week. Everyone, have a good night.